They say that man is the only animal that is aware of its own existence. My earliest memory was sitting at a table right here. Not this table, but one just like it. At this very spot, on a tiny stool made just for me. I was 3 years old and I saw my shadow cast in this doorway and was amazed that whenever I raised my arm, the shadow raised its arm too. This was the moment I was first aware that I was alive. Greetings everybody, we're off to Kansas. As you will notice, most of the seats are occupied by people half my age or people's luggage, while this almost 50-year-old man sits on the floor. This is America. Kansas? Yeah. No culture or cinema. Sing it, man. This is where you'd stick the hose if you gave the world an enema. I hear that. It's important. This is one of the old dirt roads into town. Comes right underneath the Kansas Turnpike. Else you could possibly go after Kansas be. El Dorado is that way. This is the house where I grew up. Sunday paper on the porch. This is my yard, my parents' house where I grew up. And right back here we used to have a basketball goal where we used to shoot baskets. After I saw Nightmare on Elm Street in 1985, I had a horrible dream about Freddy Krueger hiding back here in these shadows one night. Okay, so here we are at the, let me just show you. The stairs leading downstairs, the top of the stairs to my room. It was the room I shared with all three of my brothers. Let me just show you a few cool things about it. Here it is. It's kind of been amped to be sort of a glorified guest room. I grew up in this room. Check out this. The original novelization of Empire Strikes Back. And Han Solo at Star's End. I used to also have Han Solo's Revenge as well. And Splinter of the Mind's Eye. I read this book before I saw the movie. And so I knew Vader was Luke's father and wasn't a big shock when I saw it in the theater. Now, when Star Wars came out in 1977, I was in a junior high art class. We had to do these things called hook rugs, which is where you have burlap, you have these little hook things, and you take yarn and you make hooks. Well, being a Star Wars fan, Dorothy Graham, my teacher, said I could do a Star Wars themed hook rug, and it's hanging in the wall right over here. Now, I'm going to preface this because this just shows how it's kind of funny in hindsight. I just put my favorite character at the time, and I put a lightsaber in his hand. And when you see this thing, you will laugh because you will say, there is no way in hell this character would have a lightsaber. There is the lightsaber against the blue sky. And if you look back here, it is C-3PO. Good morning, everybody. We're gonna take a little walk around the neighborhood where I grew up. This is Bradford Memorial Library. When I was a kid, before those trees were planted, we used to play, all of us kids used to play a glorified version or a weird version of rugby back here. We called it Smear the Queer, apologies to the homosexual community. There were no try lines. There really was no objective except we divided into boys and girls teams, and whoever had the ball, the other team had to gang tackle them. And the only reason we played it was so we could have physical contact with girls because we didn't know much else then. Back over here behind the library is where I got into my first fight. I lost. The guy that beat me up, his name was John F. Kennedy. No, not the president who was assassinated in 1963, but we actually had a kid in our class named John F. Kennedy. If you don't believe me, I'll go show you his gravesite. This is our largest cemetery, built right next to the oil refinery, as you can see. Two of my childhood friends are buried here, along with John F. Kennedy, who you just saw. We also have one other famous celebrity out here. From the time I was 6 years old, my friends and I used to walk to school, and this is the actual route we walked. Washington Elementary, where I went to grade school. Right back there, probably around where that third tree is where I lost my virginity. There used to be a house here. It was indoors, okay? And right next door was the famous old house that was used in the movie The Gypsy Moths from 1966. As kids, we had a hammock strung up between these two trees. And right here at the age of 12, I had a stupid accident that put me in the hospital for 10 days. I'm not gonna tell you about it. Gypsy Moths from 1966, directed by John Frankenheimer, starring Burt Lancaster, Gene Hackman, Deborah Carr, and a very young Bonnie Bedelia. Much of it was filmed in this town and at this house. I use this house prominently in my own independent film, Baby's Breath. And right across the street, catty corner, is Gordy Park, where I used to play. Burt Lancaster and Deborah Carr filmed a scene on this very merry-go-round. Alright, it's midday. We're walking downtown to where one of my best friends is a local artist and has his studio, and we're gonna go to lunch. Gazebo. You like that word? Gazebo? When I was a child, there was a clinic upstairs, and that's where all the doctors practiced. There was a little elevator that went up. We had a nice attendant who manned the elevator, a tiny, like, 3-man elevator. At the base of that building, there was a pharmacy, Sandberg's Pharmacy, and they had a fountain and all sorts of good things and a comic book rack, and I think I bought my first Incredible Hulk comic book there for something like 15 cents. The old El Dorado Theater, where pretty much every one of my dreams was born. They had an old tube projector system with acetate film, magnesium art projectors, and I think I saw every major film that was important to me here when I was a child. This is downtown El Dorado. We used to have all kinds of shops and fun places for people to go here. Now we have this big gaping place where a fire took out several businesses. Most businesses are filled with attorneys and financial consultants, but if you look further down, it still retains much of its charm. We're walking over here to a little studio where my good friend Jim Clements, who I've known since I was 13, does most of his painting. Let's go take a look.
Make sure I got the right thing here. Yeah, I'm going to work on these trees right here.
Okay.
And I just kind of take my glasses off that way, and I can just...
This is Jim Clements painting. Jim and I have known each other since we were 13 years old, I think, so 36 years. What are we doing here? Just working, trying to work the texture into the trees in the background, or?
Yeah, right now I'm just trying to get the shape of the colors, the values. The values are the lightness and darkness.
Mm-hmm.
And this tree, this is an overcast day, and this tree is in the background, and it's kind of blurry. I want it to look like a tree, but I don't want it to be too detailed.
Mm-hmm.
Details right here, most of it.
So kind of like the ones you've done on the left already.
Like these.
Yeah.
And then those, I need to do a little bit more to them. But warm colors come forward, and I want these to stay back.
I see. The old Starview Drive-In. One of the first drive-ins built in America. One of the last drive-ins to still remain standing and functional. My father, he was a professor at Butler County Community College. There's the campus, and this is a yearbook from 1973. He taught there for 25 years and then was on the board of trustees for another 12. But this particular yearbook's interesting because of one person in it. That gentleman right there in the middle, that is Dennis Rader. Who, you may ask, is Dennis Rader? Well, if you don't know that name, go Google BTK. This deserted road north of town was our favorite place to take a girl to go parking. God help you if your friends found out you were out here. And we're actually east of town. You can see behind me, these are cattle pens. This is a sale barn. We're actually going into a steak place where you're basically eating the very cattle that you can see and smell over at the cattle pens. So that's a very unique Kansas experience, wouldn't you say? This used to be a tiny drilling community called Oil Hill, and believe it or not, Jack Lord from the original Hawaii Five-0 was born here. Galen Blackmore Field, named after my junior high gym coach. I used to run track here. This is East Park, and right over there by those two yellow posts is where I first kissed a girl. This is the Butler County Courthouse, one of the last grand old courthouses in the country. For as long as I've lived here, I've wondered about that little shack on top of that building. I've never had the courage to climb this fire escape and find out. This is the church I attended growing up. I was baptized here. I got married here. I guess it's kind of important. Right, here we are in front of McDonald's Stadium, where the El Dorado National Baseball Congress team, the Broncos, plays. We're gonna go in and watch a game.
Fans are requested to remain off the tops of the dugouts and not to sit in the fairways.
All right, we're now in the ninth inning, the bottom of the eighth inning of the Broncos game. El Dorado Broncos are a local NBC team, as we said. This is the McDonald's Stadium. This was a WPA project in the 30s during the Great Depression. It's kind of interesting. You see many little boys running around here playing, and these very concrete aisles are the same aisles that I was running around and playing on almost over 40 years ago, so it's kind of cool. That's my brother. I think the amazing thing about growing up in El Dorado before the internet, before cable television, is that we felt cut off from the world. And at the same time, we felt safe, like none of the evils of the world could touch us. Little did we know that at the very same time, there were actually nuclear missile silos just outside of town, which would make this area one of the prime targets should the Soviets have decided to launch an attack. But it certainly didn't feel that way at the time.